read his. In our commitment through the Convention to stabilize greenhouse gases concentration in the atmosphere in a time frame, the over 30 years of well-grounded scientific evidence and bold political commitments made at every global conference on climate change since 1995, global emissions have continued to rise. The sixth assessment report of the IPCC, released in April of this year, confirms that we are in a state of global climate emergency. The planet is warming up faster than anticipated, and 1.5 degrees centigrade will be reached before 2040 instead of the end of the century, 2100. This report further warns that climate hazards will increase in frequency and intensity. Further, the war in Ukraine is now being used as an excuse to backtrack on the commitments made by some of our developed countries, partners, to stop the use of coal. This lack of commitment by our developed country partners, including the G20 countries, to urgently reduce emissions and provide adequate climate finance to developing countries for climate action, is putting Africa in a crisis. This includes geopolitical tensions and conflict in South Sudan, Ethiopia, and DRC. People crisis hit hardest where people are already living in vulnerable conditions, ill-equipped to withstand and to recover from consecutive disasters and conflicts. Excellencies, Africa is known for its long history of migration, both voluntary and forced. In many parts of the continent, communities are spread across 2 or 3 nations. Cross-border migration in Africa represents an important livelihood. Concerns on migration and climate change, the African Union Commission has developed a number of policy instruments that I'm sure all of us know about. Firstly, the African Union Agenda 2063, which Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan for 2022-2032, whose aim is to enhance cohesion in the continent's approach to addressing climate change, and the implementation of the Blue Economy Strategy. The legally binding African Union Convention for the Protection and Assistance of Internally Displaced Persons in Africa, known as the Kampala Convention. The Africa Climate Mobility Initiative, ACMI, whose comprehensive report on the climate-forced mobility in the continent, and the the IGAD Free Movement Protocol to protect people from moving due to the impacts of climate change. The African Union also established the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change to ensure that Africa speaks with one voice in all climate and multilateral fora. Excellencies, as you are all aware, I was appointed to be the chair of the Committee of CAHOST on 2nd February 2022. Following this appointment, I held a CAHOS meeting on the 27th of June 2022 on the margins of the recently held UN Conference on Oceans. This meeting adopted, 1, the African Commission position, the African Common Position, and the key messages to COP27 as presented by Zambia as the chair of the AGN. 2, Africa's priority for COP27, Africa's common position on oceans as presented by the Africa Union Commission. The CAHOS meeting also launched the first African Climate Change Resilience Development Strategy and Action Plan 2022-2032, and the African High-Level Commission on Seas and Oceans to improve coordination and consolidate decision-making on ocean, seas, and blue economy around the continent. As agreed during CAHOS meeting, Africa priority for COP27 will focus on adaptation as a key priority for the continent, closing the existing climate finance gaps, especially on adaptation, financing loss and damage to the impacts of climate change, pushing for an ambitious mitigation plan for keeping 1.5 degrees alive, and recognizing, this is important, the special needs and circumstances of Africa. Further, to continue with the momentum to COP27, as a number of events and meetings have been lined up to mobilize, support, and consolidate our position in regional meetings similar to this meeting. Some of these events include Africa Climate Week, the Africa Climate Week in Gabon, AMSEN meeting in Senegal, pre-COP27 in DRC, climate meetings on the margins of the UN General Assembly, Africa Day at COP27, just to mention but a few. We once again express our fullest support to the Arab Republic of Egypt and to the designate COP27 President Egyptian Foreign Minister, His Excellency Samir Chakri. Excellencies, at the East African community level, a number of climate change and environment-related policy instruments have been formulated, with regular ministerial meetings convened to monitor progress on implementation. Despite these efforts, the region is still experiencing devastating climate change impacts, which know no political boundaries. These impacts and conflicts in the region have led to migration and internal displacement of our population without adequate resources to respond or monitor the movements. The World Bank report on internal climate migration in the Lake Victoria Basin countries released in 2021 projects that there will be 16.6 million to 38.5 million internal climate migrants in the Lake Victoria Basin countries by 2050, and that this could be reduced by 30% with concrete climate and development action. In the region, Kenya is a major recipient of conflict and climate change migrants, putting additional pressure on our limited resources, while we also have to deal with climate change impacts and other economic challenges. Excellencies, to respond to these impacts, my administration has put in place several disaster risk reduction mechanisms, environment and climate change legal instrument, institutional framework reforms, and safety nets, including cash transfers. Further, my administration committed to reducing emission by 32% against business as usual scenario by 2030. Despite these efforts, climate change continues to challenge our adaptive capacities and overwhelming, most particularly the youth, elderly, women, children, who are vulnerable and have contributed least to this problem. To survive climate change impacts and reduce climate-induced migration and displacement, Africa needs long-term investment in resilience building, early warning systems, and climate resilient infrastructure. It is for this reason that I urge our developed country partners and big emitters to urgently reduce emission to keep 1.5 alive, meet their climate finance obligation in a transparent and timely manner, finance loss and damage, increase funding for adaptation, and recognize the special needs and circumstances of Africa. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to thank the government of Uganda for hosting us and the organizers of this meeting, and hope very much that we will integrate the outcomes of this meeting into the discussions during the upcoming COP27 in November of this year. I thank you for listening. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for delivering the President's remarks. Your Excellencies, I would now like to invite Honorable Okello Oryem, Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, who is representing the Minister for Foreign Affairs, to read the joint declaration on migration environment, and climate change. Honorable Korean.
Your Excellency, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda, Your Excellency, Salva Kiir Mayardit, President of the Republic of South Sudan, colleagues, ministers, honorable ministers in their different distinguished capacities, Excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners, representatives of IOM, Executive Director, my dear brother of IGAD, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the different capacities. I am Okello Oryem, I'm the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of Uganda, in charge of international relations. This morning, I have the distinct honor of reading the Kampala Ministerial Declaration. But let me also take this opportunity once more, welcome you all to Uganda for this very important meeting. We're grateful for this numerous attendance and us having a full house here. At the offset, Your Excellency, permit me to express my highest respect to both of you, and also please accept my warmest compliments. Your Excellencies, the Kampala Ministerial Declaration on Migration, Environment, and Climate Change by member states of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, the East African Community, EAC, and states of the East African Horn of Africa. The Interministerial Conference on Migration, Environment, and Climate Change on this 29th July 2022, Commonwealth Speaker Resort Munyonyo, Kampala, Republic of Uganda. We, the Ministers of the Environment, Ministers of Interior, and Ministers of Foreign Affairs of the governments of the member states of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, and the East African Community, EAC, and the states of the East and Horn of Africa, having gathered together with high-level representatives on the African Union, UN, and development partners, and the youth at the Interministerial Conference on Migration, Environment, and Climate Change on 27th to 29th July 2022 in Kampala, Republic of Uganda, in the spirit of regional and integration and friendship that ties the countries of East Africa and the Horn of Africa region, namely the Republic of Burundi, the Republic of Djibouti, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the states of Eritrea, Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Republic of Kenya, Republic of Rwanda, Federal Republic of Somalia, Republic of South Sudan, Republic of Sudan, United Republic of Tanzania, and the Republic of Uganda. Deeply concerned by the adverse effects of the climate change crisis on our people and livestock, place an urgent call for enhanced cooperation and action to address the following. A, the progressive desertification and land degradation create the forced mobility of people and livestock. B, the unsustainable use of ecosystems and the impact of frequent and intense extreme weather events on people and livestock. C, the unplanned migration of our people from rural to urban centers as a result of climate change and disasters. D, the paucity of data and statistics on the impact of climate change on human and livestock mobility in the region. And E, the limitations of partnership and financing to respond to the climate crisis adversely affecting the mobility of our people and livestock in the region. Recognizing that East and Horn of Africa region is severely affected by environmental degradation, floods, landslides, sandstorms, tropical cyclones, drought, water levels rise, and rainfall variability. Notably, in 2001 alone, 2.6 million new disaster displacements occurred in sub-Saharan Africa, creating climate mobility crisis. Determined to strengthen economic growth, sustain social cohesion, and sustainability in our region. Desirous of declaring our commitment to timely respond to critical matters of migration, environment, and climate change and its adverse impact on people and livestock through enhancing cooperation on the climate change mobility crisis. Note with concern that groups including women, girls, youth, the elderly, persons with disabilities, migrants, displaced persons, pastoralists, and minorities might be threatened with marginalization in exercising their rights to access climate action opportunities. Guided by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, 1966, United Nations Council Resolution 3520, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Paris Agreement of 2015, the United Nations Convention on Combat Desertification, 1994, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, 2015 to 2030, the Agenda for the Protection of Cross-Border Displaced Persons in the Context of Disaster and Climate Change, 2015, the New Urban Agenda, 2017, Article 28, the Conventions on Biological Diversity, 1992, the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, 2018, the Global Compact on Refugees, 2013, the UN ILO International Labour Standards, the African Union Agenda, 2063, and the Glasgow Climate Pact, 2021. Recalling previous decisions of the Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change, on long-term cooperation action to ensure understanding, coordination, and cooperation in regard to climate change-induced displacement, migration, and planned relocation, where appropriate at the national, regional, and international levels. Recalling that the Paris Agreement acknowledges that climate change is a common concern of mankind, that adaptation is a global challenge faced at local, sub-national, national, regional, and global dimensions, and contributes to the protections of people, livelihood, and ecosystems, taking into account the urgent and immediate needs of those small island states and developing country party that are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effect of climate change. And the Paris Agreement, FCCC, CP 2015, L9 Decision 50, requesting the Executive Committee of the Warsaw International Mechanisms to establish according to its procedures and mandate, a task force to complement, draw upon the work, and involve and appropriate existing bodies and experts group under the convention, including the adaptation committee and the least developed countries experts group, as well as relevant organizations and experts bodies outside the conventions to the FCCC CP 2015 L9 Rev 18 development recommendations for integrated approaches to avert, minimize, and address displays related to the adverse impact of climate change. Noting the Glasgow Sharm el-Sheikh work program on the global goal of adaptation with a view to enhance adaptation actions and support in line with Cancun Climate Change Adaptation Framework and the Decision 1 CMA 3 Glasgow Climate Pact of 2021, acknowledging the rights of migrants when taking action to address climate change. Aware of the progressive work of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in line with the Working Group 2 Report on Climate Change 2022, Impacts, Adaptations, and Vulnerability. Recalling the mandates that emerge from the 26th UN Climate Change Conference, that is COP26 in Glasgow, in 2021, to inform the preparations for the 27th UN Climate Change Conference, that is COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in November 2022, towards robust climate actions, deeper cuts in greenhouse gas emissions, enhanced resilience to adapt to the effects of climate change, and financial support for developing countries, including preparations for the first global stocktake at the 28th UN Climate Change Conference, that's COP28, at the end of 2023. Recognizing and appreciating the leadership of the government of the Republic of Uganda in this dialogue on climate change, environment, and migration. Further recognizing and appreciating the partnership between IOM and the UNFCCC with member states, the AU, EAC, and IGAD in facilitating this important dialogue on the migration, environment, and climate change. In this context, therefore, we, the Ministers of Environment, Minister of the Interior, and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the EAC, IGAD, states of the East and Horn of Africa, having gathered key messages of experiences from government experts, the youth, community leaders, as well as development partners, in the spirit of international cooperation and regional integration, hereby commit to 1. Build and strengthen climate resilience and adaptive interventions of all communities living in fragile ecosystems, flood-prone water basins, low-lying areas, and mountain slopes, including enhancing urgent regional and national legislation, policies, and strategies for action. 2, implement and domesticate the provisions of the United Nations Convention to combat desertification. Underscore states' role to address desertification, land degradation, and drought as one of the drivers of poverty and forced mobility. 3, facilitate a conducive regulatory and policy environment to enhance the socio-economic benefit of remittance, trade, and investment. 4, engage multilateral development banks and financial institutions and development partners to create or extend financial relief to countries hosting migrants and disaster-displaced persons. Create and/or increase investments in the circular economy, renewable energy and energy efficiency, climate and smart agriculture, green economy, blue economy, digital economy, and nature-based solutions. 6, develop comprehensive urban plans to address population surge in urban arising as a result of adverse impact of climate change in marginal rural areas, including promoting rural-urban collaboration to reduce vulnerability and create adaptive mechanisms for safe migrations and access for sustainable livelihood. 7, work with the private sector to improve urban-rural connectivity for the youth and traders through internet access, technological advancements, provision of energy, and road or railway infrastructure. Number 8, establish and strengthen regional and national weather and climate institutions and systems to generate accurate, timely data and information on climate change impacts on human mobility and increase collaboration amongst member states and with the IGAD Center of Excellence for Climate Prediction and Applications. 9, address knowledgeable gaps by understanding and applying indigenous knowledge and practice to the development of appropriate adaptation responses to reduce the context or specific vulnerability of communities to the impact of climate change. 10, apply and integrate gender and human rights-based approaches in the design and implementation of policies relating to climate change and migration nexus. 11, establish an IGAD, ESC, and States of East and Horn of Africa Interministerial Working Group on Climate Change, Environment and Migration, develop a plan of action for the implementation of this declaration and monitor and report regularly on progress and implementation by member states. 12, request the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, AMCEN, the African Group of Negotiations, AGN, and the Group of 77 and China, and the LDC Group of Negotiators to take forward the work of IGAD, ESC, and states of the East and Horn of Africa Interministerial Working Group on Climate Change, Environment, Migration, and request to launch this Kampala Ministerial Declaration at COP27 with intentions to continue the work up to COP28 and beyond. 13, we further request the parties to A, take action to avert, minimize, and address displacements in the context of climate change and disaster, both across and within borders. B, strengthen support to countries and communities most vulnerable to climate change impacts to access new and additional scale-up climate finance. C, strengthen cooperation at all levels of government and communities and implement treaties, pacts, protocols, and regulations on free movement of people, labor, mobility, and transhumance. Facilitate capacity building and technology transfer for climate action and human mobility. E, create a multi-partner financing institution, including for youth, to avert, minimize, and address loss and damage, and advance the global goal of adaptation in the East and Horn of Africa. We remain committed to address the climate change crisis and its effect on our people, livestock in the East and Horn of Africa. Finally, done at Kampala, this 29th day of July 2022, in in 2 originals in English and French, both texts being equally authentic, to be signed by all those who are here. I thank you very much. God bless you all.
Your Excellencies will now transition to the second session that includes the signing of the declaration. And I want to invite Crane performers in exactly 2 minutes to entertain us as we bring the tables in front and set up for that signing ceremony. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, surely a round of applause for Crane performers. May I take the pleasure of inviting the Honorable Minister, the Honorable Sam Chaptoris, to come and invite our heads of delegation to take to the front for the declaration signing.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Your Excellencies, it is now my privilege to invite the head of delegations to move to that table in front there so that we can sign the declaration. because of constraints of time, I would like to propose that we only assign one copy in the front of the heads of state, and then after the heads of state have delivered their speeches and have gone, we shall complete the exercise. So please, heads of delegations, can we move to those tables, to those two tables, and we sign the declaration. Is there a problem? Hmm? The name. The countries which will be signing will be the Republic of Burundi, of Djibouti, Democratic Republic of Congo, the State of Eritrea, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Republic of Kenya, the Republic of Rwanda, the Federal Republic of Somalia, the Republic of the Sudan, the United Republic of Tanzania, the Republic of Uganda, the People's Republic of Algeria, the Republic of Egypt, the Republic of Senegal, and the Republic of Zambia. Thank you. Hey, sorry. It appears I forgot the Republic of South Sudan. I'm extremely sorry. Yet it is the biggest delegation here. And please accept my apologies.
Your Excellencies, if you've noticed, there is 17 representatives in front of you. Those include the partners invited to witness this signing of the declaration, the Republic of Senegal, who are the presidency of the African Union, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the presidency of COP27, the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, who are guests to this interministerial conference, and the Republic of Zambia, who are chair of the African Group of Negotiators. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Yeah.